So, how did you first get into nutrition, coaching, life coaching, that, I guess, um, that line of work?
Kind of by accident. I actually had a cat at the time, and this was probably over 10 years ago. And I knew I was allergic to cats, but um, being around this cat for prolonged periods of time actually set off all of these dormant allergies that I had. So I kind of suddenly became allergic to everything. But I didn't know that until I was sleeping like 12 hours a night, still needing naps during the day, just completely exhausted. And I went to the doctor. They suggested I get allergy tested. And it turned out that I was allergic to like everything all of a sudden. And so from there, I was taking allergy shots, but I was also doing a deep dive into gut health and how that can, affect or create autoimmune diseases. And so getting into all of that, as well as starting CrossFit at around the same time, which promoted the paleo diet, was really interesting because it kind of shifted my perspective from, just kind of eating whatever to eating whole foods and more of like the caveman diet, things like that, and how that affected both training performance as well as your health. And so that sharing that journey was just something I became really passionate about because I was seeing the results and the shifts in lifestyle and mood and energy and training for me personally. And then, just sharing that and becoming more and more interested in it. I wanted to help more people. And that's how I became a coach.
So, I find that interesting because it's like you you got the cat, you got the allergies, and there's like two things that could happen. You could get rid of the cat and then potentially get rid of the allergies, or you're like, okay, no, I want to keep the cat, so I got to fix the allergies. So I find that line of like, I find that I, it's like I find that path much more interesting because then it led you down this entire um journey to what you do now versus I wonder, if you had just not kept the cat, would you have been in the same spot? Would you have done this, had made the same choices, made the same decisions? Um, I
Well, I will say that the cat also went away. It was
oh,
actually
gotcha,
our first cat.
gotcha,
And before we realized what was going on, and even if we had realized, I think we would have gotten rid of it anyway.
gotcha.
So yeah, that and I do have a cat now, as you can see running around in the
Hmm.
background. She's hypoallergenic, so I don't have any problems with her. But
Yeah.
yeah.
So I've gotten allergy tested twice now. Once was in college, and then once was like I think literally earlier this year or last year. Um, and two widely different uh results. It was the one they did first was like the little droplets of allergens on your back to see like what does your skin react to. And I was just lying there. They're like, just wait for like 10 minutes or whatever. We're gonna let it react and then we'll come back and check it. I said, okay, cool. So I'm just lying there face down and I feel nothing. Maybe like the slightest little pinch, but I feel nothing. And they come back in and they say, whoa. And I'm like, what do you mean, whoa? First of all, let's let's tone that reaction down real quick. Uh, and I had them take a picture of my back, and almost every single drop had some sort of like reaction with my skin. So then he gives me that like the paper of like that they like check off like what are you allergic to, and you just put X's on everything. I think maybe three things on that paper weren't an X, and I thought, okay, this is weird because I'm a like what like 21, 20 year old individual, and I've never had problems like this before, and now you're telling me I'm allergic to everything. What do I do here? And that situation, because it was less food, it was no food allergies. It was all like environmental allergies and stuff. And so But that combined with me having Crohn's in the past, I thought, okay, something's also got to change. And I find like your story interesting because it kind of kickstarted me in a similar direction of I'm not able to get off of my Crohn's medication. They say that there's not enough research for you to get off of it, even though you're in remission. So I'd stay on it for the rest of my life as of now. And I was at that time, I was like, I really want to see if I can fix my body through food, through what I eat, through how I move, etc. I don't want to have to take like pills. They recommended allergy pills. I said, no, I'm not putting any pills in my body. I want to try something natural. And but I never got far enough to figure out like see if fixing my gut health would fix my allergies. But fast forward to this year, and I had to take it again because I was getting nasal reconstruction surgery, and they did like an allergy panel again, and then only like 5 things were on that list. But it was a blood panel, so it was much more extensive. No foods, only like outdoor allergens and stuff. And I thought I don't know if the first person was just wrong or if that test wasn't as accurate. But then knowing now that like I like to tell myself maybe I did something right in terms of food or exercise. Maybe that helped. Who knows? Um, but that also kickstarted my journey into really thinking about how um, can I fix anything that's wrong with me, quote unquote wrong, with me with food or with diet or with exercise before I have to take a pill. Like I don't anytime I have a headache or a joint ache or anything like that, I immediately take a Tylenol or an ibuprofen or an acetaminophen. I really like to like let it be there to try and see, okay, was I dehydrated today? What did I eat today? Did I have the wrong types of food today? Did I not eat today and I have a headache? And like, or did I move differently today, therefore my joint is hurting and things like that. I really try to avoid like, medication. And I'm so happy that, our paths crossed back in 2022, I think it was, because those 3 months still are probably one of the most dialed in I've been ever, because of just, you know, the work that you helped me with in terms of like extra fats and oils and putting sauerkraut in my diet. And I was back into eating avocados, and all this stuff was very, very like interesting and so beneficial. And even now, like there's sauerkraut in my fridge. I finally found a good one because I can never remember the one that like I had when I was working with you, and I was like, I don't know what this is called. I can't find it anywhere. And I never found a good one since then. Um, but I love it now. I love the natural approach to like healing your body through non-medicated means, I guess is the best way to say it.
Absolutely. I feel like there's a shift happening where more and more people are open to that idea instead of, yeah, just immediately reaching for the Advil or Tylenol or whatever. Um, I know that some of the clients I've worked with in the past, they were suffering from daily panic attacks or depression and IBS and all of these things that they were on medication for and had been for years. And it was just kind of crazy to see how quickly those symptoms either lessened or completely disappeared within weeks of changing their diet. And so I think a lot of, you know, medicine is really good at treating like acute problems or, things that aren't lifestyle related. We need medicine in certain cases for sure. But I think when we're reaching for those things instead of trying to listen to what our body's trying to tell us, right? Because that's what these aches and pains are, right? It's your body, it's like a dashboard on a car, it's just like a little warning signal saying, hey, like pay attention to this, this needs some attention. And so I think when we reach for food and yeah, like think about hydration, whether we're getting some sunshine, movement, just some really basic things. We're like plants, really, right? Like when we take care of those basic needs that we have, which actually take effort in modern society, right? Some of these things we have to really think about incorporating into our day. And so I think it kind of helps bring us back to the basics of like, okay, this is what I need for my body to thrive. And then consequently for my emotional well-being to thrive as well, since, the body, mind, spirit, it's a system, right? Everything's connected. And I think sometimes, you know, the Western um, medical system kind of looks at things maybe less as a system. And that's where it can kind of feel like you're playing whack-a-mole sometimes, where you get a medication for something, but then it has side effects, and then you have other problems created from taking that medication instead of just getting to the root of the problem, and taking into account both the emotional well-being of somebody as well as the physical well-being, I think is really important instead of just looking at one or the other, and that's something even with like talk therapy that I know everyone's in therapy, right? Like since 2020, like we've all had experiences with that. And so it's just been interesting to hear about people's experiences and even my own, and just see how different therapists take different approaches and how some do address the somatic part of your emotions, and there's the book The Body Keeps Score, where it talks about how we get these emotions kind of stuck in our bodies essentially. And as much as we can understand intellectually why those things happened, a lot of times, if we can't release it from our bodies, it's still there on that subconscious level, on that physical level. So that's something that I've been getting interested in as well. It kind of, I think, underlies a lot of people's nutritional behaviors as well. So as a coach, it's just interesting to kind of broaden the perspective and look at things more holistically and more as a system, seeing that all of these things are working together. And, I think a lot of people these days, they have the information, right? We have ChatGPT, we have YouTube, the internet, like so many resources telling us like what's healthy to eat, right? Or what's healthy to do for an exercise routine or whatever. But I think when we have traumas kind of underlying these behaviors that we want to fix, then, not addressing that part, you're just kind of like managing things instead of really doing it in a natural, aligned, effortless way.
No, there's so many things that you just said that were like that got me really thinking. I think the first thing that you said, where it was a lot of people, and which is very true, like a lot of people are trying to be more conscious about what they're putting in their body and what they're eating and what they're drinking and what they're ingesting in general. And it's curious because I agree, yet there's also this shift of I just want like the one thing. I don't want the whole I don't want the whole vegetable. I want that one nutrient out of it, which spawned the supplement industry, or a lot of people saying like protein isn't working. I need TRT, or like I can't sleep, and the low light like yellow light isn't working, or my red my like red film glasses aren't working. I need ashwagandha, or I need something to like help me. And so there's this like earlier on in the 2000s, it was, the food industry and the medical industry was very like pumped them with as much food and almost drugs as possible. And now it's like, okay, well, we have to reverse that. Like it's going to take like half a decade, decades to like help reverse what we've been taking this entire time. And I've been feeling the effects of it, where as a kid and growing up, like my parents didn't like let us snack, but my mom was like, you get one of like whatever we have at home. So it was like one Rice Krispie or one granola bar. And so I just got so used to eating only one of things every day. But when I got into college, I was like, oh, I can do more. I can experiment with like how much can I eat 3 granola bars a day? Can I have 3 Rice Krispies? I don't eat Rice Krispies, but can I have like 3 of something? And then it turned into, wait, I'm not using that like the most efficiently. I'm not like having more of the good thing. I'm just having more of like whatever I like, and that's not always a good thing. And now I'm in the place of binge eating and not portion controlling and things like that, just because of like food that I'd eaten growing up and like the way I'm conditioned to do it, and now I have to like recondition myself and rework on myself. It's very interesting when you're like aware of, I know I should be eating this. This is right here in my fridge. Like you said of like people know what good things to eat. They know how to make them because you have YouTube and you have like Instagram Reels and TikToks, like people sharing their recipes and how to make it and everything. But then you reach for the easiest thing because you're so like conditioned to reach for like whatever's gonna like make me feel good, whatever's gonna taste good, whatever's gonna like fill me up, and then I'll eat that. Not like, okay, yes, this burger might fill me up, but maybe I should really have that chicken breast and rice just for today, or something cleaner. Like maybe I shouldn't do that. And it's very tough. I feel like in today's society, it's getting easier now that you have so many health options and so many like people doing it, to where you're exposed you're exposed to people like doing the good thing as opposed to people doing the bad thing. But it is still tough to like rewire yourself to, after a long day of coming back from work, like you don't just get to go in the fridge and pull out something, or like go to the snack closet and pull out something. Like you should really stand there, build a good meal, think about what you need. What energy did you expend today? A lot of mental energy, maybe not a lot of physical energy. What can you eat that will benefit you there? And then like the other thing you said about like how much information is out there, I've been trying to work on this, like the idea of like the content diet for a while, of what are you consuming, because there's so much information out there that you can't consume all of it and execute all of it. So you have to kind of choose what you listen to, what you watch, what you read, what you scroll through, and therefore then what you execute in your life. There's so much out there. It's like hard to filter, I feel like. Depending on who you follow, what you do, etc. It's so hard to filter through now, that it's good that there's a lot of good information out there, but how much of the information is good, helpful, and how much of it is just harmful, attention seeking, addictive, like the whole I recently learned this like concept of like dopamine grabbing content, where it's like flashy and changes every 3 seconds to keep your attention, and like has words, and then some words are bolded or different colors and some words aren't, and like really making you, forcing you to keep your eyes on it. And the minute I heard that, I was so put off. I was like, I feel so manipulated. But that's like the population right now. And going off of that whole concept of like making videos and trying to like get your like share your thoughts, share your feelings out there and everything. We talked briefly recently about this idea about the relationship between food and creativity. I think is like a loose way to like introduce what you were saying. But can you explain more on like how that concept works?
Yeah. Wait, can I go back to, you just
Sure.
said a bunch of interesting things as well.
Sure.
Um, I think that's such an interesting kind of counterpoint about how we reach for what's convenient and kind of how there's this search for the quick fix, right? Even with like ashwagandha or like healthy things, it's like before it was, you know, maybe medication or some sort of band-aid. And then now it's like we're trying to zero in on the healthy vitamin or supplement that's going to fix all of our problems, which I kind of see hopefully as like a stepping stone to fully realizing that again, everything just works as a system. So there's not going to be one thing, right? It's like a bunch of little things that add up that we do to be healthy overall, right? And so, and I think all of this is directly related to what you're saying about the social media and the dopamine hits, right? Because it's like our attention span, like our focus is so scattered, right? And that's a whole other conversation. But, I think that kind of translates also to the way that we ingest food, right? And so I think in 2020, a lot of people's, um, stuff came to the surface, right? Emotional issues. I heard the other day that, you know, we have like a magnetic field, like an electromagnetic field around our heart, right? That extends about 6 feet out. I guess it's the same thing as an aura, but there is the scientific um, concept of this as well. And it was interesting because, of course, social distancing was 6 feet, away. So we didn't have nearly as many people in our kind of like energy field as we did before. So we kind of had to sit with our energy and the things that were coming up for us, um, for quite a while. And for, a lot of people, I think it was a really, really tough year. And I think we're still kind of feeling the after effects of that. And I think that is what's pushing us to be more conscious of our emotional health and physical well-being and all of this stuff. So, you know, I think I'm hopeful that with AI, there is going to be something that helps us kind of like bridge this gap. And, I know a lot of people are scared of AI, but I feel like there's a lot of good that it could probably do if we wield it correctly, if it's in the right hands. But um, I'm hopeful that will, basically create solutions, find solutions for working through some of this emotional processing that will allow us to make more conscious, intentional choices. Because I think right now there's just so much trauma that a lot of people are processing that and our focus is so scattered that it makes decision making harder, and convenience becomes a higher priority to us because again in modern society making healthy choices takes effort, and it's not this natural thing anymore. It's something that we really have to like plan out and like think about, unfortunately.
There, if you're into listening to podcasts, just recently, I think last weekend, or earlier this week, Chris Williamson did one with Mike Isratel again, and their topic was longevity. And coming to your comment about AI at the end of it, Mike just goes on a very like nerdy, energetic like rant about how like AI in the not necessarily medical, but like the longevity field, and how once we're able to incorporate AI into the analysis of somebody, and like maybe like as least invasive as possible, but like as like there's gonna be a point in time when like AI is gonna be used for like you know gene mapping, or AI or technology is gonna be used for like human upgrades and all these things. But the way I think about it is there's also a point in time when AI can be used for like analyzing your entire body, your gut biome, your mental, like the way your brain is working and like the connections, and kind of see where are the gaps or where are like the blocks and where are the deficiencies and inefficiencies. And that's really going to, at some point, if that's mainstream, it could really help people like hone in on the optimal way for them to be a healthier, happier, more like engaged, focused human being, as opposed to the distracted, really weary, really sometimes even lonesome individual that they currently are. And so I'm actually also very interested in seeing like those uses of AI, where it's like it can compute exponentially just so much faster, and hopefully give us like these insights to see like, physically, outwardly, you look healthy. Maybe your joints are fine, but like your brain isn't really on the same like connective like connection with your like gut. Like you want to eat these things, but you know you shouldn't, kind of thing. Like that. Like there's always that. There's like that's the easiest example to make, but that's also very interesting. Yeah, I agree. I'm looking forward to the end of this decade and maybe the start of the next one. Really seeing that hopefully come through. Unfortunately, a lot of these things are always like luxury gated. It feels like only the most wealthy people have access to these kind of things, and I would really love to see and or maybe even at some point be a part of a way to bring those to more quote unquote normal people, maybe more middle class people, people who it would benefit more to have their life get back to a baseline, as opposed to always feeling like they're catching up or running behind or like so like behind in life or not really enjoying life. Like those are the people that I want to see benefit from this, not somebody who's already more or less leading a good life but wants to make it better. Like I would love to have people feeling good, and then everybody's feeling good. Um, that would be kind of cool.
Exactly. No, I mean, I think what you said right there, I mean, that's so important. When you feel good, everybody feels good. It's like I, I've been thinking more about just the practical reasons that it's important to be healthy, as well as, confident. So emotional well-being as well, tied up in that. But um, how it doesn't just benefit you, it benefits everybody that you come into contact with, right? And the energy that you're putting out into the world and what you're able to create. So that kind of loops back into your question about food and creativity and the connection between them. I think that I've been thinking more about the body as a vessel for creativity. We've all got these bodies, and we have our minds as well. We've got our hearts, and I think the better that we can take care of our bodies, because of all of the issues and side effects that can happen when you don't, and all of the energy and brain space that can take up, the healthier our body is, the more room, the more space that we have to access our creativity and creative energy, right? Because if we're always trying to just keep our head above water, you know, we're just trying to survive at that point. We're just trying to get through our day, we're just trying to complete the next task. And while that might be okay for short periods of time, if it becomes a chronic issue in a state we're just living in at that point, then I think that's when it's important to kind of take a step back and see what you can do. And I think for a lot of people, that starts with their physical health, sleep, movement, nutrition, hydration, that kind of stuff. And then it's just so interesting the kind of domino effect that happens when you've got the basics taken care of, right? And that's when you can move into, you know, more interesting things. It's kind of similar to the AI stuff. It's like, okay, we're building this, robot essentially that can take, or it's kind of like a calculator too. It's like it's going to take care of all the stuff that was taking us a lot of time, so we can just kind of automate that and move on to bigger and better problems to think about, or create more time to work on these problems and create, solutions and things like that. So I kind of look at it that way, where it's just creating more space for more interesting creative
And
time.
more energy. I feel like, to your point, where it's like it goes back to what you just said about, if technology is taking the thinking part out of it, it's telling you what to do, then all you have to do is execute. But if you don't have energy to execute, then you're not able to get the whole benefit, feel as good as you need to. And so I've this year, I think this October, um I really, I like to tell myself this: 99% of my problems daily would be fixed with a morning walk. Um, and I still believe that, although it is aggressively cold right now, to where a morning walk does not feel good. But it's like, I tell myself that because the concept of like morning sunlight and getting like fresh air and light into your eyes and into your body so early in the day, and just doing it through a walk, basically, like, I feel like it helps your brain and your body to feel like, I like, it gives you energy for the day. Like, you're doing something that's going to give you energy for the rest of the day. And I mainly say that because for the past year and a half, I've been in like a very, very low, very like not normal mental state, to where like I didn't feel like my baseline level of normal energy, fun, excitement for anything. And so in October, I said, okay, I need to fix this. How do I fix this? And one of the things was, I need to get out first thing in the morning. Like, I cannot be in my bed. I cannot wake up at 7:30 and be in my bed till 9:45 when I have, and then get out of bed to go work at 10. Like, I have to do something in the morning. Um, and to your point, like, once I started taking care of my body more, especially in the earlier part of the day, it gave me more energy to do the things I wanted to do the rest of the day. It gives you more energy to get through your work day. And by the end of your work day, you actually can enjoy your evening and do things in your evening, whether it's creative work. Like with me, it was still like videography and editing, and reading, posting, like typing up my book reviews, or like chatting with people online, or anything like that. I had the energy to do that, where I previously I didn't. And so, like, I mean, I'm so interested to see this relationship between what you eat affecting your physical being, your mental being, and then as it's hopefully helping and benefiting you and increasing your energy levels and your mood levels and everything like that, how that then shifts to benefiting your creative levels. If you're feeling good, feeling excited about something, you're more likely than not maybe wanting to do something about it, create something around it, or engage in that thing you're excited about, because you have the energy to, and you have the time to, and you have like the willpower to, almost. Um, I'm really, really interested to see like this like relationship between the two, like, further.
Yeah, okay, that's good feedback, because I think that's kind of why I've been so interested in nutrition, because I feel like it's this very important sort of area to address for so many of us, right? Like, I was dealing with my health issues and I didn't know what was going on, or how to fix them. And I saw how much it was holding me back. I mean, I was sleeping 12 hours, a night, and still exhausted during the day. So, it really prevents you from living life fully, and um, so once I was able to kind of figure out some things, I don't know everything by any means, but I'm always learning. And, I want to share anything that I've found that works for me or for other people, to just get their baseline, like you said, just to a place where they're excited about their day, and they they're ready for it. And I think we all have periods where um, we kind of struggle with that. I mean, I've also been definitely lower energy the past year and a half. I think as a collective, a lot of us have. So I think, there's definitely been a lot going on. And I think also the contrast of that has helped me appreciate these tools, with nutrition and exercise even more. Before I was exercising for performance, essentially for fun,
Right.
and it wasn't until, things kind of got shaken up and I started feeling lower energy that I started to really appreciate the emotional impact of my exercise routine, and how that helps a lot with anxiety or just motivation, optimism, things like that, But sometimes it takes kind of falling off of that a little bit to really come back to it and uh, really see the value in it and make that a reason that you are more consistent with it. But again, we all go through seasons, so I think it's totally natural. And the contrast again is helpful. Um, but yeah, it's interesting. It's like a spiral, right? We're always learning new levels of all of this stuff. So yeah.
There's oh, I just had this thought. I'm so mad because it was right here and then it left. I don't what was it?
Mm.
Okay, if I remember it, I'll it's a concept I want to propose to you, but
Okay.
if I remember it again, I'll bring it up at some later point. But I wanted to ask, uh, have you seen this recent aggressively viral scenario where this doctor, her name is I believe Louks, on um, and on Twitter she posted like that she successfully I forget the verbiage like when you're presenting your thesis and you have to like argue for it or whatever it is, like whatever that's called. She did a thesis on on the olfactory relationships between, or the relationship between like your olfactory senses and like culture, elitism, racism, all those things. And there was this massive, like probably one of the most viral things that has happened the entire year. I think it made her thesis get like the most downloads of any thesis ever because everybody was reading her like her the excerpt of like this like at the beginning, the abstract, and was refuting it on the internet and trying to like poke holes in it, and then other people were standing up for her and all these things. And I saw that, and that's what like made me really interested in the in also your um concept, because these are like very new, I guess maybe not new thoughts, but it's very new to be addressing concepts like this. Food to creativity, what you smell to elitism. Like they're very like people would call it a stretch, but there's a line connecting one or the other. And I read through that and I was like, this is so cool. I want to see more of this. I want to see more of these like completely seemingly unrelated things, and people find that line together. Because I'm not smart enough to do it, but I would love to read about it. So if you haven't, like definitely check it out. I think like the I tried to read the abstract. I couldn't understand it. I'm gonna have to find like an abstract explained video on the internet somewhere to like really understand it. But I feel like it's similar to like also how you eat what you eat. And I might be stretching here, I might be going on a tangent here, but if you think about like what you see people of luxury eat versus what you see people of lower class eat, it's a similar concept of like we use that as like a barrier between the classes of people can only afford this, they can only eat this. Therefore, like if they're seen eating that, they're already like of a lower class or a lower sect, and um, it just got me thinking about that. I definitely want to look more into that. I'll have to note that down somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have a kind of new appreciation um, for the privilege of having access to organic foods and things like that. The neighborhood I'm in here in Brooklyn, there it's a little more lower class, and going to the grocery stores, I was like, oh, I want to find like a local grocery store, one that's close by, and I went into probably six or seven, and all of them were full of processed foods. And the meat section, it it didn't look like good food,
Yeah.
and it was just really, um I guess disheartening is the word, but it was, yeah, kind of uh disheartening to see that, you know, all of these people, most of the world really, do not have access to these foods that allow them to access their own energy, fully. And that's not to say that that's going to, you know, it's like a total like deal breaker, for them to um be able to access that. But it is, I believe, a big block, and I'm hopeful again that AI somehow has helps us create some sort of solution to that we have not been able to figure out up until this point. But
Mm-hmm.
again, that'll take being the right hands, and taking the right people to kind of co-create that solution with AI. But um, yeah, but to your point about the olfactory and racism and things like that, and the different relationships, I think that a different perspective that I've been kind of adopting recently is looking at everything as a relationship. So even our relationship to our own feelings, for instance, it can be this like internal thing, um, but how other sorts of topics and subjects are related to each other as well, right? Like the world is kind of like a spider web, and I feel like you can kind of relate anything to each other. Everything is connected in some sort of way where you can find a connection between different things, right? And I've also been thinking a lot about kind of earth and like ether and like space and like spirituality, even like how do all of these things like kind of relate to each other again, kind of as a system, and I think when we understand, our relationship to things, and how we relate to ourselves, how we relate to people, like there's a lot of like patterns that you can kind of uncover that help us kind of get closer to the truth, for lack of a better word. I mean, I think that when we're able to see how these seemingly disparate things are connected, we have more respect and appreciation for things, and more understanding, and less judgment, um, when we can see that, when we can kind of become aware of that and shed light on that. So I think that that's kind of, yeah, the underlying basis for a lot of the stuff that I'm currently thinking about when it comes to food, and how it affects all of these other things that we do. And yeah, even down to like world peace, right? Like it's just like the better that we feel, the better we're going to feel around others, better relationships we're going to have, but it all starts with ourselves and how we're taking care of ourselves, because we're kind of just like a little microcosm of the universe, right? Like we've got to get this good so that we can relate to the other little universes,
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, in a healthy, peaceful manner.
You recently went to like a sound retreat. Wasn't is that what you call it? Or um
Yes, that was actually, I guess you would call it like a nervous system energetic sort of retreat, but
mm-hmm.
it did include sound healing, which is
Gotcha. Okay.
something I'm learning about currently.
Mm-hmm. How did you get introduced to that? Um or like going or like I guess introduced to it and then the decision to like go and experience and be a part of it.
So I went to an entrepreneurs conference in Colorado in late August, and I met a few women there who are into a lot of the things that we're talking about. And everybody's got different kind of modalities that they sort of teach this stuff through. And the woman leading the retreat that you mentioned, she specifically talks about the nervous system. So, um, a lot of like somatic breathwork practices, cold plunges, um, meditation, ecstatic movement, shaking, like all sorts of different things. How we can kind of regulate our nervous system, because again, this goes back to the idea that the better relationship we have to ourselves, the better relationship we have to others, right? So I think a lot of people, especially since 2020, are living in fight or flight, and or fawn, freeze as well, where we're just kind of paralyzed. We don't want to make decisions, take action on things because we're just so honestly like emotionally exhausted, right? And so nervous system regulation, I feel like, has been this kind of growing thing in the coaching industry, where it's again kind of addressing these underlying processes that affect our whole body, the way we rest, digest, our mood, the thoughts we think, cortisol levels, like all of this stuff is nervous system regulation kind of underlies all of that. So connecting with her, I was definitely excited to go to the retreat and like learn more about some of these tools from her. And then she included some sound bowl healing as well. And I had recently met um, a coach who also, her whole business is around sound healing and crystal bowls and things like that. And it was just so interesting to learn from both of them the healing effects that sound can have through vibrations, right? So that's a thing that I'm starting to explore, because I've been personally interested in music and songwriting the past couple of years. And so to study how you can heal people through sound vibrations, but also how you can express yourself artistically, and then also how creative expression relates to health, right? Like the opposite of depression is expression. All of these things kind of again tied together, and yeah, so that's why I've been so interested in that recently.
That's cool. No, I like that because I think all those different things that you mentioned, whether it's the cold plunge or the meditation and the breath work, or like simply like shaking your entire body and then leading into how sounds heal the body. I feel like there's we do a lot of that stuff every day without realizing how it's actually affecting us. Like the things you hear, the the wavelengths and the vibrations of what you hear do affect our mood, our thoughts, like to the extent our energy levels. That's why there's a that I love the concept, and I love the like the two sides of it, right? The side of maybe like using like a ceramic bowl and having a more um like calming sound for like the intended benefit of um relaxation, maybe like thinking, like not overthinking, really like trying to focus in or like release emotions and things like that. And then you have the other side, which is what we've all been doing for years, where we're going to the gym and we're blasting whatever energetic thing that we can in our ears because that sound is getting us physically to do what we're trying to do. Um, and so it's this spectrum is something that I think it's really cool to explore, where you have the times when you're exposing yourself to sound to regulate or influence how you feel and what you want to do. Same with like how breath work regulates and influences what you want to do, whether it's reducing anxiety or increasing like um, your what's the word for it, your capacity to think, increasing your capacity to move, etc. And then really really honing in on these things. And I think like I would be really interested to go to one of these retreats or events where you have all of these like um, for lack of a better term, activities that are doing the same thing but in a different way, to kind of really see like what what do you resonate with the most. Did you find one that you felt like you enjoyed or resonated with or would like to incorporate into your day to day more than something else?
Mm, yeah. Okay. I have a few notes on everything you just said, but to that last point, I think noticing what resonates with you, there's so many tools, right? Noticing what resonates with you and building your own sort of like toolkit of things that you know you can turn to when you feel a certain type of way, right? I think that's really important. I think sometimes I know I definitely have gotten into a place where I'm kind of just like, yeah, looking for somebody else to tell me like what the answer is or what to do. And, only you have the answer to that. And usually it ends up being a blend of a lot of different things that you've learned, right? So I think it's all of these practices really help you tap in and tune into how you're feeling, right? And I think that can sound so fluffy, but I think when you really have an experience where you notice how much deeper you can feel about something, how much more there is there to become aware of and to notice and to learn about a situation that maybe you didn't see before, it lands a little more. But all of these somatic practices drop you into your body, right? And our body, again, is that vessel for our mind and our spirit. And I think when we are disconnected from our bodies for whatever reason, because of the way that we were taught to eat, even as a kid, or different emotional experiences that brought up really big feelings, heart rate, um, you know, butterflies, gut stuff like that we try to shut down or repress, or we're like, okay, not right now. All of these energies are like swirling around in our body. And if we don't know how to like process them through our bodies, instead of just through our mind or talking through it, then I think some of that stuff can kind of get stuck in our bodies and cause dis-ease, and the beauty of these practices are that they're not using words really to heal, right? They're going straight to your body, getting you out of your head and more in touch with those emotions, which is just energy in motion, right? So it's just all going back to energy and making sure that's like flowing through you, that it's being circulated, right? That it's not getting stuck or stagnant in you. And that's kind of, I think, what acupuncture and chi, is all about. It's just kind of removing any blocks and getting things like flowing again. Because again, like if it's flowing within you, then you can flow and engage in life, with others more easily too. But if we've got stuff inside of us that feels stuck or heavy, or there's like resistance and friction there, then that's going to be reflected externally as well. So the more that we can kind of work through those things with some of these modalities, whichever one resonates with you, the better.
There's have you there was this story that I came across when I was in college. In my communications class, we had to make a presentation, and so I just picked like the recent like the bone conduction ear sets where they like sit on your bone instead of in your ear, and they transmit sound through that. And I found that concept very interesting. And then I came across this story of, man, I really have to do better with names. I cannot remember a name to save my life, but there's this old man. He has very bad memory loss issues. He's in memory care, and they couldn't get him to remember like his family or like the names of his friends, or really really bad memory issues. And they gave him a song, and once again I forget what song it is. But they gave him a headset. They put on one of his favorite songs from when he was like a young adult, and they put that headset on him, and he sang the entire song word for word based on like just hearing that song again. Like he heard a little bit of the song, they took the headset off, and he sang the entire rest of the song, because that's how, at that point in his life, that's how that music and that sound really like sank in him, and it never left. So even, unfortunately, when you have like things like the memory issues and can't remember people's names or people's faces or whatever it is, you still remember this sound of how this sounded, and you can bring it back out. And I came across that then, and then I recently came across that again when I was watching somebody's YouTube video, and they were talking about the relationship between sound and our memory and everything like that. And I thought this was just such a beautiful story of really how sound can sit with you, how sound is related to memories, how every time I remember playing a specific video game as a kid, I distinctly remember the song that I would always listen to while playing that video game, and then vice versa. If I hear the song, I then remember what I was doing while listening to that song, playing that specific game. And going off of that, there's this thing that I've noticed with people where they don't like silence anymore. I think based on like what was happening in 2022, and everybody was all alone or isolated, and when you're isolated and you only have yourself to be with. A lot of times you're being with yourself quietly, like you're not talking, you're not producing sound. All you have are your thoughts and yourself, and you have this void. I love sitting in silence a lot. There's a lot of times when I'll choose to not play anything going to the gym or coming back from the gym. I'll just sit in silence to see like what thoughts come out. That's the whole point of meditation, right? Is not to have any music, like a lot of meditations where you don't have any music playing. You're just breathing. You're focusing on your breath, and you're letting whatever thoughts that you have come to the surface. Be aware of them, and don't try and push them away or manipulate them. Just be aware of what's happening. And so like when I was talking about like the spectrum of like calm relaxing sound and the spectrum of like very intense aggressive sound, there's like this in the middle. It's like there's no sound, and then like how is it making you feel there? And I really do. I would love for everyone to be able to sit with themselves with no sound and just see like what you do. Do you like try and make sound to make some sort of um like like to get back to how like your normal feeling of like I always have sound. I'm always listening to music. I'm always listening to something. Or do you like sit there like anxious? Do you get anxious because there's nothing, no sound around you? Um, I I think that's really interesting because a lot of what I realized, what I do, and this was before I actually also started therapy. After my October like month of getting my life back on track, I started therapy in November. It's the first time I've ever done this. Um, but right before that, in October, I was I was introduced to the idea of how people numb their emotions and numb their thoughts with like content and visuals and sound, and I realized, okay, maybe that's why I've been feeling so bad, because I've been numbing myself for the past year. I've been Anytime I work, I want a YouTube video playing in the background when I'm working. I can't properly focus on work if I have something audibly or visually distracting me. But I don't want to work. I don't want to focus on work for some reason. So that's why I'm welcoming this distraction. I'm welcoming this thing that's numbing me from like having to focus or having to think really hard, or having to like apply myself. And maybe I get a headache because I'm thinking too hard, but I need that. I need to work that muscle, but I'm not letting myself. And so what I started with was sound, and then I moved to the visual part of it of like, okay, if I can't focus when someone's talking, can I focus when someone's singing? A little bit better. Okay. Well, I know for a fact that I can focus if nothing is in my ear. I know I can focus, but then your mind wanders because it's so used to being numb and so used to like being distracted that it's still wandering, looking for something. Um, but and then so the way I fixed that was like addressing sound, then visuals, and I love the concept of like sometimes you just need to be quiet, sit in silence, sit in like nothing. Like don't play music when you're trying to go to bed, or don't wake up and the first thing you do is put on a YouTube video or a podcast. You know, listen to like the emptiness around you, or there might be like birds chirping. Who knows? Now maybe crickets. Who knows? Like listen to what's actually around you, and it helped. It really helped me like heal that part of my like focus and distraction and things like that. Um, and I just wanted to share that because it was it was such an interesting insight that I gained of like just being in silence. And just recently it's really funny being how aware of things that I am. But I went to my therapist. We were walking to her office. We did a little bit of small talk on the first half of the walk, and then the rest of the time we were just quiet and just walking to the office. And I started smiling because I was like, I feel this like thing. I feel this pull to need to fill the void with sound of like asking something or saying something. But because I was aware of that, I was like, I'm just gonna keep quiet. We're just gonna quietly walk to their office. And that was like such a small minor thing. It was like a 10-second thing. And I still remember that now, like almost a week later. Um, so fun. Such an interesting like thing to be aware of like I feel like I have to talk here. You don't. You could just sit in silence. You know, you could just. That's what elevators are like. That's how you get in an elevator, right? When you're like, it's really awkward because nobody's talking and everybody's just standing there. But I enjoy that. It's like, wow, everybody's quiet. No one's forcing themselves to talk or like, hey, or like make small house of weather, like make small talk. It's really nice.
Absolutely. That I love that you told that story, and that's so interesting because with the talk about nutrition and exercise and all that stuff, you know, even breath work, it's funny how silence can be so healing, like you said. And especially with others. Something that has come up lately is that, the greatest gift you can give somebody is your presence, right? And just being really present with them. And you don't need to say anything, or even how healing it is, for someone to just listen, and be in presence with you. How sometimes that's all we need. We don't need to be told how to fix a problem or talk through it or anything like that. We just need to be heard, um, and feel seen and understood. And so that has also been interesting because coaching and working with people, the tendency is also to kind of, like you said, like fill the space, or, not fill the space, but just like offer a solution or a question that leads them to the solution. And I think I've been really appreciating the value of just being a really good listener and holding space for whatever wants to come through, and being that safe space, which, kind of going back to the retreat, I feel like that's kind of my biggest takeaway from that experience, is that it was just a safe space for people to experience the effects of these tools and see what came up for them, and know that they're safe for to experience whatever wants to come up from that. And I think, yeah, so much of the time we're numbing ourselves. I mean, this is something I'm working on as well, of like trying not to listen to as much YouTube and things like that, podcasts. And I think, especially when you're a curious person and you love to learn and there's so much information available, like you were saying at the beginning, like prioritizing, your time and curating your mental diet is really important, and strongly affects our well-being as well. And, even moving to New York, all of the background noise here, I didn't really realize how much I'd gotten used to that background noise until I got noise canceling headphones recently. And I was like, wow, it's so quiet on this walk right now, and that absolutely, like you said, I mean, that affects our nervous system as well. But I think a lot of us are just so used to chaos, or some level of chaos, as our baseline, that we kind of need that constant stimulation through sound or visuals or whatever, or food even, to, kind of distract ourselves, and so, yeah, it's just really interesting thinking about focus, and social media and these companies that are literally, trying to keep our focus, in these apps, and how powerful silence can be.
Mm-hmm. Uh, one more thing on that topic, and then I have another thing I want to ask you. But recently, we just took a trip to New York. My wife and I, we went to go visit New York, since we're in Pennsylvania now. And while she was there, she was like, "Oh, this is so nice. This is so fun." Because we were going on, we were taking the subway. We were walking all day when we were there, which was definitely a shock to my feet and my legs. And then like just being around so many people, because we went to like the Christmas markets, we went to Times Square, and we went to like all these different avenues that I still don't know the names of. And she's like, this is so like fun. She was like, I could definitely like live here, or like be here. And I looked at it, I was like, no, you won't, no, you can't. And I also looked at it, I was like, I'm not doing this in the first place. I'm not moving to a place like New York. And it was really funny because when we came home, she was like, "Oh yeah, I get what you were saying." Because when we're back here, like the air that we live in, it's quiet, it's very quiet, more space and all this stuff. And so it's like that's like inherently the things that we do appreciate more. And then going into like the crowded setting, going into the chaos, I would rather be in the silence and the calm and the serene, and then voluntarily go into the chaos after I've mentally prepared myself, as opposed to live in the chaos and then not be able to like, or like live in the chaos and then like voluntarily go into the calm, the serene, the relaxed. So I found that really interesting, just because um, we're both of us are different, but that interaction was definitely really fun. Um, so when it comes to listening, reading, or watching content, um, what do you do? Like what's your mix?
Ooh, just like of different formats
Mm-hmm.
or topics or
Like
all
like
of
like
the
how much do
above
you
or
read versus how much do you watch versus how much do you just like listen to a podcast or like an audiobook? Like how much of each?
mm. Um, so the way I read is a little different, I guess. I usually have different, maybe like 5 or 6 books that I'm kind of reading at a time, for different sorts of moods, you know? So if I want to just relax, I might have a fiction book. If I want to learn about a certain topic, I'll have a book on that. If I want more just like a generalized, like, life lesson sort of autobiographical thing, I have that. So, I'll pick one of those based on kind of how I'm feeling. I think in the past, I used to read quite a bit, and I've, maybe like 40 to 50 books a year. Um, but I've been more focused on creating versus consuming the past couple of years. So I've been less trying to hit a certain number of books per year. And so this kind of random way of reading now is a lot more like relaxed. I'm not, it usually takes me a while to get through all of them, but that's totally fine because I'm not trying to hit a certain number. So that is working well for me right now. Um, as far as YouTube and podcasts, I feel like I need to have a daily limit or like a time limit or video limit or something like that because YouTube is so fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So much good content on there, and the algorithm is incredible. So it's always recommending things that are just so great. There's just so many smart people there that are just sharing so much
So
knowledge.
many
So,
smart people. It's
like you.
crazy. It's
So,
no,
so,
almost. But I need that too, and I love how that you say that because there's I find this very interesting. There's definitely like apps or software out there that like that oh you're gonna lock your phone as much like once you've like scrolled on social media for too long, or like if you can tell it, hey, if I'm on this app for too long, lock my phone, or like keep me out of it, or keep me out of the app. And I'm like, I know I could do that and that might help me, but I feel I enjoy it too much to not do that. To
yeah.
the same point you were saying, I think I have YouTube open probably the most of the entire day. And that is to consume videos and podcasts. I don't open anything else as much um, to that extent. But well, so I wanted to ask you, like, is there anything interesting that you've been reading or watching recently? Whether it's like a book or one of the few that you're reading that you wouldn't mind sharing.
Ooh, I feel like there's so many different things. Maybe the book that comes to mind first is this book called Healing the Witch Wound. And it's an interesting kind of historical, spiritual, also physical book about the ways that mostly women, and marginalized groups, but really collectively as a whole, our self-expression has been kind of stifled, over the years. And the Salem witch trials and things like that kind of creating this collective wounding, like psychological wounding,
Mm.
uh, that has kind of been passed down through generations, and it's this idea that if you are different, or you speak up or speak out, then you will be ostracized, tortured, burned at the stake, that sort of thing. And a lot of the women who were persecuted, were more intuitive or into nature, animals, some of the things that they did around like witchcraft and spells, like
Hmm.
it was very, I think, really what we would call spiritual practices today. But, I think in a society where the people in power didn't know what to do with that, or, they saw that the power that these healers were kind of having over others, they would be really a valuable part of whatever town or village they're in, and people would come to them, but the people in power like didn't like that because they didn't understand it. And of course, during that time, anybody who's doing that sort of thing, is pretty quickly like shut down. So it's just been interesting to see how that's kind of manifested through the years in society, even today, and how that can affect the voice. And, that's something that I've been noticing just kind of anecdotally. Um, but how many people are interested in singing like over the past few years, and there's so many singing courses and coaches and teachers and stuff like that, that are kind of popping up. And I feel like there's a reason for that. I feel like a lot of people are kind of reclaiming their self-expression, their power, they're pulling their energy back to themselves. And I think there's been, more kind of witch imagery and stuff like that with even like Taylor Swift at her Eras, concert, and other female pop artists right now. Like there's just a lot of alluding to that kind of witch wound, whether it's intentional or not, I'm not sure, but it's been an interesting thing to kind of see. But then also, it even was helping inform just the way I look at, nutrition and physical health as well, because um, I think a lot of again, everything's connected, everything's a relationship. I think, you know, um, self-expression is just such an important part of like overall health and well-being. So for us to kind of address this, head on and be aware of maybe some of the wounding that's happened in this space, helps us feel like more in our bodies, helps us feel safe to be in our bodies more. And yeah, so that's kind of been a strange one that has come up. And the way I found it was so strange too, because I literally heard the term witch wound one day in August, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I wrote it down, kind of to look up later. The next day I was at a bookstore and I picked up a book and was reading it for about 10 minutes. I look up and the book right underneath it was called Healing the Witch Wound. And so I was like, oh,
Wow.
well,
Yeah.
I obviously need to read that. So I
Yes.
bought,
If there's anything that's a
um,
sign of
yeah, well,
witchcrafty, is that
and
sign of just
well,
there you go.
right. I mean, it was like, of course it would happen that way. The really strange thing is that I remembered this little chapter book that I started writing when I was like 9 years old. And it was called The Witch's Wicked Curse. And it was a book about witches. And there was a singer in there too. So it's just interesting, all of the synchronicities that come up when you've got a thread of something
I'm just
that
imagining one of those like police like those like walls where they have like the maps of like the pins of connecting the threads
exactly like
between different things. It's like 9 years old, writing a book about singing, interested in singing, also sees witchcraft, also hears witch food, is now reading a book about the psychological effect and the passing down of generations of the Salem witch trials. There's a connection here somewhere.
also got a black cat. in
Also got a
October.
black cat. There you go. Sabrina the
So,
Teenage Witch is somewhere over here as well. There's a connection there.
yeah.
Oh, that's
What
so.
about you?
I want to stick on that singing topic real quick though, because do you also enjoy like singing?
That is something I've been learning over the past year or two as well. It's something I've always been terrified of. I think I have some stuff around voice for sure, growing up that I'm working through right now, but it's so interesting how healing singing has been. Um, which is really interesting because Angelina Jolie just starred in a film about where she's playing an opera singer. And she was also talking about the healing power of learning how to sing. She was saying people shouldn't go to therapy, they should go to singing lessons
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
you learn so much about yourself and the way that we subtly manipulate our voices depending on what situation we're in, who we're around, or how we're feeling is really fascinating. And I've also been taking acting classes the past few months, and that is definitely something we talk about as well. You know, when people have a script in front of them, all of a sudden they change their posture, the way that they're speaking, all of this stuff. So, one exercise we do is a conversation exercise where you just have a conversation as yourself with somebody and then you slip into reading the script to just notice any shift in the way you're speaking, and it's surprisingly hard for most people to just
Mm-hmm.
continue speaking like yourself even when you're playing a character. So
Mm-hmm.
all of the stuff that I've been learning about singing and voice and authenticity, you know, has been really an interesting journey.
Yeah. I I think that exercise is actually really cool because it does highlight how rigid somebody sounds when they're like reading off a script, or they can sound if they're not used to it. When I was first starting YouTube, I tried really hard not to script anything because I knew for a fact that like okay, scripting is going to help me with what I want to say and keeping things concise and staying on point and not going off tangent like you would in a natural conversation, even like the one that we've been having. But I didn't want to do it. So I tried to talk about like the books and everything like that just off the dome. And I was going into rants and I was, you know, my own speech patterns were presenting themselves and I saw all the filler words and all the ums that I use. But when I tried to script, I found myself, okay, I will say the line that I'm supposed to say. And then to your point, I would then slip into, okay, maybe that sounded a little bit scripted, but then I slipped into now speaking off the dome like a conversation. And when I watch that back, I'm like, I can tell where I read off something that I wrote versus when I was just speaking off the dome, trying to talk to the camera, talk to somebody about the book. Um, and it is an interesting exercise. I feel like it takes a lot of work to mentally like know what you know what you're supposed to say, but say it not like you're how do I say this? It takes a lot to because I don't want to say like reading off a script. Like the way that I'm thinking about it is like saying what you're supposed to say, but not sounding like this is what I'm supposed to say. It's like this is just what I'm thinking, or this is very casual, or this was just off the dome, and I wanted to say this. Versus when you say something, and it has like the sentence structure and like the punctuation of how it was written down, and maybe it's not supposed to be said the way it's written down, but that is the way it's written down. That's really interesting. And then the singing part was really interesting because I've been wanting to learn how to sing for years now. Growing up, my family was very musical, as is a family who loves watching Bollywood movies. We would sing in the car. My dad, back in his college days, almost got a degree in singing. He went that far. I think he was like a couple of exams away from doing it. He just never did it. But he would always sing in the car. My sister and I sang a lot. My mom doesn't sing as much, but she also enjoys singing. And I realized how much better my sister was at singing than I was, and I liked listening to her. And I always thought I'm not singing as well as her. My tone's not as good. Maybe I just shouldn't sing as loudly. So I would like sing underneath her if she was singing, or like we'd like sing different parts of songs and stuff. It was very nice to sing. It was just very like I was like a closeted singer essentially. Never did choir or anything like that. Never sang in front of people. And then going into like college, where I was like, you know, my self expression outwardly was not singing; it was dancing. So then I eventually got used to listening to music and then dancing while walking to class. So if anybody sees me dance, oh well, I've danced in front of people at sessions all the time. A random public person doesn't matter. And then over the past couple of years, I realized, okay, singing is also another form of self expression that I really enjoy, because like everybody has those days when they're just yelling in their car, bellowing, just really getting it out. And very few people realize like the emotions afterwards, but like it's so freeing to do that. And what's changed now is there's times when I'll be like humming in a grocery store, or like under my breath, like singing something that I've been listening to just in a grocery store, not afraid of how do I sound? Is someone gonna be like, you need to stop, like you suck, like you're tone deaf, like not having a fear of expressing like just a little bit of sound for myself in a public space. I still do want to take singing lessons to then be at least for myself know you at least sound okay in tune. You sound fine. But I also like me, my wife, like we all love singing, and so I've found that that's a very great way of self-expression. And then the next thing is the thing that you talked about maybe having like speech or like voice issues, maybe thinking of like issues that you had growing up. I've always have been, I still am to an extent, socially awkward, socially anxious, and I have had issues of stuttering, stammering, rushing what I say. So singing was like a way to help that, where I can't speak Hindi and Gujarati very well, but when I'm singing, I feel like I have a better Indian accent when I'm singing. And so I like that, because because when I like speak Hindi and Gujarati, it's a very like Western Americanized accent saying the words. And I'm like, it doesn't sound good to me. I don't like it. My mother-in-law's like, you sound very cute. It's fine. Like, we love when you speak in Hindi, but I'm like, I don't like it. But when I sing, I don't have that issue. And I know what words to say, and it sounds good to me because I'm trying to match what they're doing, and it sounds good to me. I can match their tempo and their pitch, so my own issues of the speed of how I talk and my stuttering doesn't happen when I sing. And there's so many like insights to have when you like go through activities like this. Of I wonder if that's why I love singing, because it helps me not feel as bad as I do when I'm like talking and I think I have all these issues. I have none of these issues with singing. And that's why I like to do it so much.
Yeah, I think that, well, first of all, that's amazing that your family is so musical and that you grew up singing, because I feel like when you have that muscle memory, you can always tap back into that. So that's super cool. I also think that, you know, self-expression through your voice, going back to the humming, it is healing. Like literally, like the humming sensation is toning your vagus nerve, which is the biggest nerve in your body that affects all of your organs essentially. So there's literal good feelings that are coming from simply humming, not to mention all of the good feelings that come from just expressing yourself in a fluid way. So I think that's awesome. And I definitely encourage you to take singing lessons if that's something that you've been interested in. I'm actually taking singing lessons as well as working with what's called a divine voice healer. That's what she calls herself. And it's more of a look at singing through the lens of a lot of the stuff that we're talking about around kind of working through any self-expression, blocks, or she's very familiar with the witch wound, all of those sorts of things. So it's been really fun to take such an explicitly kind of spiritual, emotional well-being sort of lens to using your voice. So that's been really cool.
I love that. I love that. I think we are both. My wife and I have told ourselves like we want to do it at some point, and so like when we do have time, I don't know. I feel like okay, there's a lot of things I do separately from her. There's a lot of things she does separately from me. So in my brain, I'm like, I'm not gonna start singing lessons until we can do it together, and then so we can laugh at each other and enjoy with each other and all that stuff too. Um, to to wrap things up here, I want to ask you, um, what is one piece of advice that you would like to give to somebody who's listening or watching right now? It's very open ended, like it can be anything. Um, but what is one thing you would like somebody to hear?
This is a good question. I think it's similar to Tim Ferriss's billboard question. Do you know that one?
Mm-mm.
If you had a billboard for everybody in the world to see, what would you put on it?
Oh, so
And I think
interesting.
it's such a great question.
Yeah.
Oh, I've been thinking on this, especially as I'm rebuilding my coaching business and kind of expanding beyond nutrition to think more about body, heart, brain coherence, I guess you could say, or harmony, as I like to say. I think as of today, the message that I would most want to share with people is really basic, but it's to take care of yourself as well as you can, because that's not only going to improve your well-being, your life, the way that you greet each day, but it's also going to impact the relationships that you have with other people and create this ripple effect of good energy out into the world, which I think is kind of what we're here to do, to get closer to that anyway. So,
That's
yeah.
great. Oh, I love to hear it. Where can people find you if they want to know more and follow you and everything?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at kia.katherine. That's KIA.KATHERINE. I also started a YouTube channel. Uh, Thank you for the inspiration.
Lovely. Let's go.
Just this past week, I'm trying to do a short each day for the rest of the month. We'll see how that goes. But right now, they're kind of little music video sketches. I put some vocals on the first one as well, but that'll be a fun project, I think, to build some momentum, get the reps in going into the new year. But those are the two main platforms I'm on it
Is
currently.
the YouTube channel also the same as the Instagram handle, or is it different?
It is
Okay,
kia.katherine.
amazing. All right, expect to follow in like the next 20 seconds. But Kia, thank you so much for joining me and having this conversation with me. It's been a long time coming, and um, when I was trying to catch up with life in October, I made a list. I journaled a list of like people that I wanted to sit down and talk to again, and your name was on that list, and so I'm glad that we were able to connect like this, both offline and online. I appreciate you very much.
Oh, it's my privilege, my honor to be here. Thank you so much. I love having conversations like this with people. Not everybody is interested in this sort of stuff, so it's just awesome to meet others who are trying to better themselves and help others as well, and do it in an authentic, honest, creative way. So thank you so much for sharing your magic with the world.
I try every day.